Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Biking and Blabbing. I'm Cycle Mike. Hopefully this damn phone doesn't rattle too much, but it likely will. I'm sorry, it's a new phone case, and I think I'm going to retire it at some point because it's a piece of crap. But, typical other piece of crap. So I wanted to talk today about, I had this on my mind for Saturday's video, but I decided, hey, I took a week off because of the phone case problem, got a new phone case. Now I'm back with another video Saturday, so I figured, I promised you guys I was going to make a new video, or a second video this week, and here I am. I'm not quite keep in mind, I'm not quite at the point where I'm doing 2 videos a week. Like a lot of other YouTubers, I want to just do 1 a week, just to keep things going and keep the channel growing. So yeah, look at tires. Let me throw out a tire. That's pretty exciting. I don't know why, but it is. Tires are the shit. So I wanted to talk about Friday's Graham Norton episode. Well, Friday 2 weeks ago for the Brits, Friday this past week for us Americans. Because the Americans are always behind a week. We're always behind in everything. We're the Americans. So this past week he had on a bunch of interesting guests. Octavia Spencer was the American guest. And I have to be honest with you, I think, and I know this is more for the Brits than it is for the Americans, it's not really a show made for Americans. It's broadcast on on BBC America, but it's not a show made for the American public, in the sense that, they have, a few American actors on. The American actors are there to sell the show for the Brits, not to sell the show for the Americans. I actually think that the show could do without American actors for a week, especially in quarantine. I don't like the fact that they're doing the Zoom segment with one American actor, and it's one segment, and they're not commingling with the other guests, shall we say. And that's kind of the magic of the show, is the commingling. And it's just, I gotta get out of here because of the rap music. It's just kind of pointless to have them on in quarantine when they're only on for a segment. I'm a big stickler for like 1 segment or 2 segment guests on a talk show. That's why I don't really like a lot of American talk shows, because it's like, to me, there's a rudeness behind it, I think, where, I don't know, it's just stale. I think I've complained about this before. I know I've complained about this before. I'm not so sure I've complained about it before on the vlog. But there's just a staleness to it. It's like, hey, welcome on the show, Tom Hanks. Here you are for 15 minutes. Thanks for showing up. See you later, Tom Hanks. I get part of it is, it's easier on American actors to do American shows, in the sense that it's like you can do an American talk show and do the rest of your press, in an evening. You can have it be a part of your press for the evening, and like stop by, do Conan, and then go off to the red carpet or something like that, or from the red carpet go to Conan. It's really simple, or it makes it a lot easier on them, as opposed to staying for the entire hour. But that's one of the things I really like about the Grid. I like that the monologue, I like that the show is not about Graham being funny. Everything, the way American talk shows are set up is everybody thinks they're Johnny Carson, and I'm sorry, they're not. You know, you have a talk show. I wish that somebody did a show. I wish that, because if you think about, the way they used to do them, you had Carson, who was funny, and he did, he had a real, he was fast and witty with his guests, and he wasn't trying to, if you notice now, how, comics will break off from the conversation in a way to make a joke that was written for them for the conversation or something. I shouldn't say comics, but hosts will do that instead of just throwing in a joke smoothly into the chat. Conan does that a lot. He breaks off the conversation to make a joke, and it just, to me, it disrupts the conversation. It doesn't feel natural. It feels like somebody trying to be funny as opposed to being funny. And the difference there is if you're actually funny, you can fit it into the conversation, and it makes the conversation flow more seamlessly. I give Conan a lot of crap. I should give other talk show hosts more crap. But, and then you have people this is supposed to be about Graham Norton. Before we get to Graham, I just had to explain to you why it's so much better. Because it is better. Then you get to people like Colbert, who my issue with him is very simple, which is I don't think he's really interested in any of the guests that he interviews unless they're from his childhood. And I feel like everybody that he has on as a guest, and the reason I think this is because every guest that's on his show is there for one segment, even the person that could be there for 2 segments. And the other thing I don't like about his show is that it's a political show, but with guests, and that's the problem with it. It's not what the show should be. It's not a, you know what I mean? The politics should stop at the monologue, and he just drills, I don't really like the fact that when he interviewed Patton Oswalt, he asked him if his daughter knew who Donald Trump was. I just think there's no getting away from the politics of the time on his show when you're there. To me, if I'm a guest or if I'm in the audience, politics in monologue, politics out of the rest of the show. Unless you have a bit before the guests come out. So it's just everything that he does on that show is politically driven. And if you are a politician or if you are a guest, you will have to answer political questions about politics of the day, what your opinions are, what you think of certain candidates. It's a pain in the ass. And I think that people want a break from that. And he doesn't really provide much of a break. And then you have Gordon, who actually, James Corden, not Gordon, Corden, C-O-R, I think it's D, no, D-O-N. He actually does the British chat show thing, but only for 2 segments. Again, it's that stale, and it's all about his other bits, and I wish it wasn't, because I actually think Graham is actually really funny, but he's funny in his monologue, but he's also funny in his, because it's the improv, as James Lipton would say. I think that's where real comedy is. I think real comedy is, it's on the person who is the star, not the writers, but the person who is the star of the show to come up with funny things, Sure, the writers are important in the monologue, but, and yeah, okay, maybe you have people like Craig where you think their comedy is stale because it's not, because it's repetitive so often. But if you look at what Graham does, I think he does it right. I think he makes the show about the guests and not about himself, even though it's got his name on the title. He's the most selfless person on TV with their name on the title. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert is all about Stephen Colbert. The Late Late Show with James Corden is all about James Corden. The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon is all about Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Kimmel is all about Jimmy Kimmel. So, if one of the three or four, let's see, Fallon, well, you got five. You got Fallon, Myers, Colbert, Corden, Kimmel. If one of the five were to just have the show be about themselves, and the other four make it about the guest, I think I think the one of the five, not because I think he's the funniest, actually, I kind of think he is the funniest. Oh, yeah, also if you counted six. If one of the five, that being, I think Jimmy Kimmel would be the one, were to be the only one to make it about himself, I think the other four would be successful. And, I mean, I think bits like Carpool Karaoke are great, and they're a success story for the Late Show with James Corden. But I don't think that. And we have to understand too. We put people on TV to interview celebrities that are actually bad at interviewing people. Let me just put that in America. We do that. That's something that we do. And it's just, I think there are certain people on top. I think there are people like Kelly Clarkson, if you're talking about like daytime stuff. I think she's really good at interviewing people because she's really actually curious about every guest that comes on her show. And if she loses that energy, like so many talk show hosts have, then the show will become stale. But Graham is actually interested in every guest, and I can tell that. I don't need, him to tell that. I know that. He's interested in everybody that comes on the show. And, yeah. Oh, no, I don't. So, yeah. I just really like the way he interviews people. That's why it's the only chat show I watch. That's, at the end of the day, yeah, part of it was, I will say, part of this whole thing was that Craig left, and that was, Craig Ferguson left. I know it's years ago, but part of that, part of my finding another talk show host. But I believe I was watching Graham. Maybe not. I don't know if I think I got. Oh no, I got BBC America when Craig was on because Jenna Coleman did his show, and I had BBC America back in Series 7 was on. I don't know if they were airing Graham back then. I know they were airing Graham on when Series 8 was going on. But so the main reason for talking for mentioning the Graham Norton show is they had their first journalist on this past week by the name of Frank Gardner, and he's a really kind of inspiring guy. He was shot by a bunch of Al-Qaeda 6 times, and his cameraman was killed. This was back in 2004, I believe. And, yeah, it was 2004. It was 2004 or 6. It was 2000. I think it was, I can't remember what it was. I think it was 2004. Might be 6. Damn it, I should know this. Anyways, he was shot 6 times. He should have died. He did not die. He's in a wheelchair now for the rest of his life. And they did a documentary about him. I can't watch it, of course, because it's had it. And I don't know. I'll probably be able to watch it at some point. I don't think they'll. That's actually one of my complaints about BBC America is they don't give us. Not so much like, we don't need Absolutely Fabulous or anything, but they don't give us like the documentaries that the Brits get. And I think we should. I think we should get, Planet Earth should not be the only thing that we get. I think they should take, like the Graham Norton show as a show for BBC America, because we had already aired Planet Earth over here in the States, because I believe, not Oprah, but somebody else did it. We'd already aired Life. I know, Oprah had done Life. We'd already aired all that stuff, so the Americans were already sort of saturated and used to the Planet Earth material. But we didn't really know who Graham was, and it worked, obviously, because BBC America still airs it. So if it needs to take more chances like that, because not that who's going anywhere or even my Planet Earth stuff, but the network just can't. It can't survive with who, and I mean it has, and it's done really well, but it's not that interesting if it doesn't, if it can only manage to survive with TNG and Planet Earth. It needs, if you think about it, Graham Norton as a talk show, that's like the outcast show in a lot of ways, because it's so different from everything else. They don't air the Jonathan Ross show. They don't air. If it's a channel that represents the UK, I mean they air darts, which is a weird thing to air considering how. And I think trying out sporting events was an idea. And I think it was a good idea, but I think they need to try things out like documentaries. I think they need to show the Frank Gardner documentary. I think they need to show I think it was like Visionaries or whatever. Sorry! But yeah, they need to show all that stuff. At some point. But yeah, I just found the story really kind of inspiring, and I hate using that word when I'm talking about a disabled person. But I found it interesting that he was the first journalist they ever had on. His way of learning how to receive is really interesting, and I think it's brave for him to revisit the hospital where people took care of him, and I really appreciate him sort of rooting for the NHS, or not rooting, but praising the NHS, it's the National Health Service, because I think it's the whole way that we deal with our health system is disgusting, and I hope that after quarantine we reassess the way we deal with the way we, what we charge for a doctor visit, what we charge somebody in the ER dying of cancer, getting treatment, whatever. Because it's not fair. We're taking people's health and franchising it and prospering. And yes, people, hospitals are a business. They need to stay in business. Doctors are a business. But insurance companies should not be a business as far as medical insurance goes. It does keep the poor poorer, and it keeps the middle, it keeps the classes in line. That's for damn sure. But and it'll take 10 to 15 years to. Freaking Biden doesn't actually want to eradicate it, obviously. But it just, I think it's great for us to hear that from Frank, to see the Brits. Not that they have their situation under control, as far as the virus, because they got some idiot prime minister in charge, but that's not a doctor's fault, that's politics, But I think the NHS is something that, to be honest with you, other than, besides the way they treat, damn, we really were coming in here. Besides the way they treat pedestrianism. I was also thinking about moving to the UK or someplace else because of the fact that they got they really do care for everybody medically, and they understand pedestrianism. This is something that, we're just starting to understand as a nation. And, so yeah. But I think that, Frank's story is fascinating. I think he's, as I said before, I think he's a very inspiring person, not just because, he's just, I hate using the word inspiring, because it's so, using the word inspiring to a disabled person is almost like talking down to them, I feel. But yeah. Hell, watching the sort of airport, watching him get on and off the plane, and watching the airport people sort of ponder to him, and he hates that, that's a thing, ponder to the disabled folks, because if you don't, they're just gonna, make a riot. But yeah, it's just, really, really simple stuff that is not thought of as much as it should be, I guess. You know, there's ways in which people move through the world that people don't think about. And I think, in his case, being a pedestrian, in my case, being a pedestrian, those things are not thought about as in-depthly as they should be. And I have to say, I think that COVID again is going to change this. It's so sad that thousands of people are going to, millions of people have died, and we're going to learn so much about the way we deal with people in society through this virus, and some of that is going to be very, very beneficial and positive. It's a shame we have to, the way that we end up looking at it is, it's because over a million people died, and I'm sorry, but that's what happened, and in a weird way, I'm grateful that the world is going to change in these ways, but it's sad that it had to change because of the reason it changed was because of the pandemic. So, yeah. But if you can, I highly recommend you watch the Frank Gardner documentary that I cannot watch. Yeah, I thought it was a great topic to talk about on this episode of Biking and Blabbing, because it was something entertaining, and I had my whole I think I did my political spiel Saturday. I forget what I talked about. I talked about something really in depth. So yeah, give that a watch, and I will see everybody next week. Well, more or less, I think I'll have it on Friday or Saturday. But yeah, give it a watch and a listen. Or give it a watch, rather. Listen while you watch. And thanks for watching this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I believe this is episode number 11? 10 or 11? But yeah, I can't believe I made it this far with this vlog. So I'll talk to you later. Recycling Mike signing off. And tell your friends